was a fiery young religious leader in Jerusalem. And during that time, he did not like Christians. He absolutely hated believers in Jesus because he thought they were people who were turning away from the true religion of Judaism. Saul completely rejected Jesus, and he actively persecuted Jesus' followers. He even stood by and held people's coats as they stoned people to death. One day, he went to the high priest and asked for special permission to travel to a town called Damascus so he could round up all the Christ followers that he had found, and he was going to put them in prison there in Jerusalem. Well, Saul was well on his way to Damascus with his followers and his travelers when something happened that would never, ever, ever be expected. Without a warning, a blazing, bright light, just kind of brighter than the sun, appeared out of nowhere, and Saul fell to the ground, and he was probably stunned. You see, Saul knew the Old Testament scriptures pretty well, and he knew that God used odd things to help speak to individuals to show what was going on. Remember, Saul thought what he was doing was God's work, and with great zeal and great intensity. All of a sudden, a voice spoke from heaven.
Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?
Who are you, Lord? I'm not persecuting you. I'm persecuting those followers of Jesus.
I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting.
Oh, no.
Saul immediately knew what he had done, and everything he had done backwards. He had zealously tried to keep people away from worshiping Jesus, but now he knew through this encounter that Jesus is God. So next thing, they now stood up speechless, and Saul stood up from the ground trembling, and he was completely blind. Then they helped him, and then they all went to Damascus, where he stayed for 3 days, not eating, drinking, or seeing anything. Meanwhile, in the city of Damascus, another man was going about his business when he was interrupted by a surprising vision. This man, his name was Ananias, but unlike Saul, he was a devout believer in Jesus Christ. He was one of the people who Saul was actually on his way to find and put in prison. Jesus appeared to Ananias kind of a little bit quieter than he actually appeared to Saul, but Jesus had a big job for his disciple. He told Ananias exactly where to find Saul of Tarsus. He said Ananias, he would find him praying, and that Saul would expect Ananias to restore his sight. Ananias was startled. He knew who Saul was and what he was doing whenever he was coming to Damascus to persecute Christians. But Jesus assured Ananias that he had a great plan for Saul to take the good news of Jesus to many, many people. Ananias, he trusted Jesus and he obeyed his instructions. So he went to Saul and he found him exactly just like he had described. Ananias placed his hands on Saul's head and said,
"Brother Saul, God has sent me to restore your vision."
Immediately Saul was able to see.
I can see!
And immediately he started identifying himself as the people who he was set out to persecute. The man who had been so bad and who acted so violently and hated Christians, actually he was now part of them. See, Saul went on to become one of the greatest missionaries that ever lived. Have you ever felt like you were too bad to get to heaven? Or maybe you believed in Jesus, that you believe in Jesus, but you've never shared the good news about him with people that you would think would never turn from their sin. Well, today's lesson is a clear reminder that no sin is too great for God's forgiveness. If you would like to know more about how Jesus can forgive any of your sins, don't leave this video today without talking to myself or Jeanne or Ronnie or even another adult about this. If you're holding back the good news from people just because of their sin, you may need to ask God for forgiveness for that too. Pray now that God will bring those people to salvation just like he saved Saul. See you all next week. Bye.
Bye.